Peace and love, everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday Hope and Healing session where we use Transcending the Matrix, a system of healing, spiritual development, growth, and unfoldment to bring hope, to bring healing, to bring transformation into different areas of your life where it's needed. And that includes the elimination of physical pain, the repair of physical injuries that have been present within the body temple, and all things related to your overall sense of well-being. And so we're glad to do that every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are here for that purpose on today. And so I welcome everybody who's in this place. Kudos to all of you who are on a journey, who are consciously engaged on a journey. And it's important to you to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. For those of you who are on a path and on a journey where not only your growth, development, and unfoldment is important for you, but where it's also important for you to be a light that shines wherever it is that you go, and you want to be a vessel of healing. You want to be a person who can serve as a catalyst for other people's healing. I'm so thankful. I'm so deeply grateful that for the last 20-something years, I've been blessed to be a vessel of healing in a lot of people's lives. I maintain first and foremost that God is the healer, but I'm thankful that I get to be a vessel of that healing, and love is the tool that's used to bring the actual healing about. And so that's one of the great pleasures of my life, one of the great privileges of my life, one of the things that I am deeply humbled by, and deeply grateful for. And so one of the things that has become infinitely clear over the last many years of doing this is that the things that we think are the problems, and I'm talking about even stuff that's going on in your body, even the arthritis, even the gout, even the difficulty that one might be having with menstrual cramps, even tumors that might exist in the body, even a broken bone that might occur from an accident that somebody was in, or some physical injury that somebody sustained. The root cause of that is always beneath the surface. And while you can do things to have a tumor removed surgically from your body, or while you can be given physical medications that will alter the chemistry of your body, while you can take painkillers that will actually inhibit and suppress the receptivity of the awareness of the pain in your brain so that you're numb to it, so that you're not consciously aware of it. Those things, none of those things actually deal with the root of the issue. None of those things actually get rid of the problem from the root. And so it's like spraying Febreze in a room where the source of the odor is still there. Okay, it's really just dealing with the symptom, but it's not dealing with the cause. If you want to really get rid ultimately of this thing that's showing up in your life in a negative way, that that's not desirable for you, then the best way to address that is through the root. And that's, oops, sorry about that. And that's what we do through this work of transcending the matrix. Transcending the matrix. When I say the matrix, what is it that I'm talking about? I'm talking about specifically the matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation. We as spiritual beings existing within the framework and within the context of a physical world where there are three dimensions: length, width, and height, then we experience ourselves as being separate from everything else in our known world. We experience ourselves as being over here and somebody else as being over there. We experience ourselves as right here, confined within this X amount of cubic feet that our physical bodies occupy, and we experience everything else as being separate from us. The problem that creates within the subtlest and most profound, in a lot of ways, aspects of our psyche is that then we get this idea, and what is created within us is a sense of fear. There's a sense of, we were able to recognize the differentiation. And in the process of recognizing the differentiation, we operate off of a false premise that if we're different, then if there's difference, then there must be deficiency. There must be deficiency. And so we get this idea, if you are different from me, if you're separate from me, then one of us has to be deficient, either me or you. Tony, Matt, greetings, brother. Welcome to the space. We get this idea, if you think differently than me, one of us must be wrong, either me or you. If you look differently than me, then there's something has to be wrong with one of us, either me or you. If you vote differently than I do, then one of us has to be wrong, either me or you. And the reality is that none of us wants to be the one who's wrong. None of us wants to be the one who's deficient. And so then we create these barriers. We create these barriers between ourselves and our fellow members of creation that actually, what it does is it actually creates a self-sustaining cycle of keeping people at bay, keeping people at a distance. It creates a self-sustaining cycle of fear. And fear can be used as an acronym. Many of you have heard this before. I've used it on this channel many times before, as false evidence appearing real. Things seem a certain way, but because they seem that way doesn't mean that that's how things actually are, right? And so in the ancient language of Sanskrit, there's a term for that called Maya. And Maya, loosely translated into English, essentially means illusion. But what it really means is that things are not as they seem. And so we've got this, on one hand, when I talk about this matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation, on one hand, there's the aspect of the separation. In other words, that anything outside of me can somehow be a threat or a danger to me, which creates a sense of fear and fear-based responses that are resulting from that. The other aspect of this three-dimensional matrix beliefs of separation and limitation is the limitation aspect. And so we get this idea that there are limits on how much good there is in the world. There's limit on how much love there is that can be available to us. There's in our minds, in our thinking process, we get this idea that something good happened. At some point, the bottom's going to fall out. Something good is coming my way. What's the catch? Something wonderful is taking place in my life. When is the other shoe going to fall? Which also creates a sense of what? Fear and fear-based responses, that false evidence appearing real. And so then what do? We find ways that we shut down. And when you look at, in a lot of ways, what it is that fear does, what it does is it actually triggers a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is in the oldest part of the brain, right? It's in the most primal part of our brain. It's that part of our brain that triggers doing whatever it is that we need to do to be able to survive. Right? And when that part of the brain gets stimulated, when we're operating in that fear-based state, what ends up happening is that we have stress hormones released into our bodies like adrenaline and cortisol that put us in a position of getting ready to either fight or flee, right? Fight or flight is the mechanism that takes place in our bodies. What happens is that these hormones are flooded into our system. In the process of these hormones flooded into our system, it elevates our heart rate, It puts us in a position where we're able to activate ourselves physically to either fight to survive or to run like crazy and get the heck out of there in order to be able to survive. A reality is that in days gone by, that had a very important mechanism. When there was a leopard that was in the vicinity and you needed to get away, when there was actual physical threat to your body where you needed to engage your body physically, and all of this energy was being pumped into your body because you needed that to act out whatever it was that you needed to act out, either fleeing or fighting, in order to be able to survive. What happens in a lot of cases with us today is that we have those same biological mechanisms taking place. That same fight or flight response is taking place, but there isn't anything that's actually chasing us, that's physically chasing us in the moment. And what happens is if you are in this fear or fight or flight state, and you're not actually doing something to physically work those things off, then your blood is coagulating 8 times faster than it would be if you were actually physically fighting or if you were actually physically running away, right? And so this actually decreases the longevity of our life. It puts us in a state of making it difficult for us to relax. It makes it difficult for us to be present in our relationships with other people. It makes it hard for us to trust the processes of life. And it puts us in a state of feeling like, and sometimes it's deeply subconsciously, feeling like we have to control things, feeling like we have to control things. And so I like what you said here about the matters of faith. We fear the unknown, but our faith allows us to press forward. I want to speak on that real quickly because I've spoken to this before. Scripture says that we've all been given a measure of faith. And the key is what it is. I don't feel like faith is an issue for I don't feel like anybody is deficient of faith. I feel like it's an issue of where it is that we're placing our faith. We're having faith in something that we can't see, right? We're having faith in things unfolding in a way that hasn't actually taken place yet. Our faith is applied to the future. And what ends up happening is we end up experiencing in the now moment a future reality, an anticipated future reality. Ideally, that anticipated future reality is anticipation in a simultaneously all powerful and all loving God working things out in your favor in a way that's going to prove fruitful and beneficial for you in the long run in life, right? Unfortunately, an unfortunate reality is that what often happens is we put our faith in things not working out. We a lot of times put our faith in our ability to be able to control outcomes and circumstances. We end up in the process of that becoming overly attached to outcomes and therefore end up sabotaging things unfolding in a way that ultimately will work for our highest and best good and the highest and best good of everybody involved. Okay. Now I'm just going to take a minute and breathe for a second because I know I've been kind of rapid firing in a way. And I would like to check in with you all and see how are you feeling? What are some areas where you anticipate future outcomes, either in a positive way, either in a way that aligns with how you would like to see things unfold, or how you're afraid that things are going to unfold? I would submit that all of us, to a degree, teeter totter, vacillate between the two. Sometimes we have moments where we have faith that everything is going to work out, where we're able to take our hands off of trying to control the outcome. Sometimes we feel like we've got to be deeply involved in manipulating things in such a way as to bend bend our world and everybody in it to line up with how we think we want it to go. And the reality is, in using the small percentage of our brain capacity that we're frequently using and operating from the fear based perspectives that we sometimes find ourselves operating in when we get caught up in this 3D matrix, if you will, the reality is that in our conscious minds, we don't always really know what it is that we really want. And I believe that fundamentally we all want the same thing. Fundamentally. I believe fundamentally we all want to feel fulfilled. Fundamentally, we all want to feel like our life matters. Fundamentally, we all want to feel valued for who it is that we are. Fundamentally, we all want to feel loved, and we all want to feel love. Fundamentally, we all want to feel safe. These are universal things that all of us want. These are things that all of us want, but sometimes we think that things unfolding in a certain way are going to be the only things that will get us there. And some of us, while we might ultimately want the same thing, our path to that might be different. For some of us, feeling fulfilled might look very different than what being in fulfilled looks like for somebody else, right? Sometimes, mm, sometimes we have a very clear understanding of what it is that would make us feel fulfilled. And in our minds, what we're clear about is somebody else or something else outside of ourselves lining up with our desire. And unfortunately, that's not really how it works. That's not really how it works. The reality is that it's all an inside job. Now, we is a type of life form called human beings on planet Earth. We tend to lean in the direction of searching outside of ourselves. All right? It's believed that there are some 200 billion to 400 billion stars in the galaxy with which we live in, called the Milky Way, right? The closest star to where we are, it would take you 4 years to get there, traveling at a speed of 186,000 miles per second, right? We set up technology to be able to explore, and that's just one galaxy. They're believed to be some 30 billion galaxies. We create and develop technology to explore space. We're fascinated with space travel. There's talk, there's been talk over the years about colonizing the moon or colonizing Mars or Venus. The reality is that if we would just do this planet right, we wouldn't have to worry about colonizing some other place. If we just learn to honor and respect the planet that we currently call home. That's another topic for another day. We develop high powered telescopes to look out into space and to, as best we can, uncover the mysteries that exist in the vastness of the universe. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that it's appropriate for us to recognize that we are part of a greater whole. I think there's value in us recognizing that there's value in wanting to understand the greater whole within which we exist, right? I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. What I will say, though, is as deep as one can go in outer space, one can go in inner space. And I believe that there was a movie, a Star Trek movie that came out many years ago called Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country. I believe that there is an undiscovered country that we have neglected and that we need to delve more fully into, and that is that which exists within us. It said that we're using some 10% of our brain capacity. In the meanwhile, we're developing computers that have an ability to think for themselves, which will very soon be outsmarting us and possibly take over, as has been indicated uh, time and time again in Hollywood. In fact, the methodology that we utilize um, in these Sunday Hope and Healing sessions, Transcending the Matrix, uh, the inspiration for the name of the methodology actually came from the movie series, The Matrix, right? Wherein basically computers took over the world and enslaved humans. I'm not going to get all into that in a great deal of depth right now. But there's so much in us to be uncovered. So often we find ourselves, and I'm not saying this as if I'm not included in this. It includes me. That's how I can speak to it so well. So often in our interactions, in our relationships with other people, we want something from someone else. We're trying to figure out someone else and why someone else is behaving a certain way or not behaving a certain way. And sometimes we fail to look deeply at ourselves and uncover, why is it that I do this when this happens? Why is it that I feel this way when this happens? Really understanding the whys and the wherefores of one's own existence, one's own beingness, one's own behaviors, right? And then not only understanding it, but then understanding where there are areas of deficiency, where there are areas of challenge, where there are areas of opportunity for growth, how to then operate in alignment with that and grow accordingly, heal accordingly, transform accordingly, right? There, there were temples in ancient days that had inscribed above the portals of the temple the words "Know thyself." Know thyself. Like, do you really know who it is that you are? I would submit to you that the journey of your life is a process of discovering that. I would submit to you that the journey of your life is the process of discovering that. Choosing how it is that you're going to show up in the world, consciously choosing how you're going to show up in the world, and that being founded in who it is that you really are. And for all of us, we have a name, we may perhaps have a job, we may have different titles within our family. Those might be different parts of us. We might be involved with different organizations, we might have certain titles that we occupy within those different spaces. We might sometimes say, I am a this or I am a that, based on those different titles that you might wear, those different hats that you might wear. But none of those things are who you actually are. They may be part of who you are, They're certainly not the totality of who you are. They're not the totality of who you are. And even this earth suit that you're wearing, it's not the totality of who you are. You're a living soul with far more depth than you probably ever allowed yourself to realize or to experience. Your body was born, and there will be a time that your body will return to the earth. But you're not your body. Your body is temporal, but you are not. Who you really are was never born and will never die. Who it is that you are is connected with an infinite source of love, infinite source of wisdom. And the more you as a living, breathing being manifested on the plane of the earth realm, you and I actually get to decide our identity, right? Maybe that makes you feel empowered. You get to decide your identity. Let me word that just slightly differently. We get to decide how it is that we identify. Mm. That might be a trigger for some people. You know, I go into Zoom meetings and see sometimes people will put their name and then they'll put in parentheses he, him, or in parentheses she, her, right? Um, there's a whole thing now in terms of how a person is identifying in terms of gender. There are things about how people identify in terms of ethnicity. This is becoming more the case than ever before, in my observation at least. How one is identifying, and those things dealing with how one is identifying are things that are really on the lower aspect of existence. You know, what I'm talking about is how you mainly identify. Do you mainly identify with the trauma that you've been through? Do you mainly identify with the body that you have, whether that body has male genitalia or female genitalia? Do you mainly identify with what it is that somebody pays you to do? Do you mainly identify who you are with the role that you have in your family? Do you mainly identify who you are based on the history of your life experiences? Do you mainly identify who you are by the number of likes and comments that you get on social media? How much is that a part of your identity? Do you see your value as being greater if you have a job that is seen as respectable and pays a lot of money than you do in situations where you're between opportunities? Do you see your value as greater based on who else it is outside of you that approves of you versus who doesn't? Or do you see the essence of who you are, and do you identify who you are as an eternal being, as a child of God, as a vessel of pure love and divine light that has entered into an earthen experience in order to allow the light within you to shine in the midst of the presence of the darkness, therefore revealing to yourself more fully just how much of the light that you actually are. Do you identify with the part of yourself that is 100% of the time tapped into the mind of God, tapped into the heart of God? Do you identify yourself with a part of you that is worthy of love, no matter what other people's behaviors might be, right? What I want to say for all of us today is that we probably have moments where we spend a little time in those different places, but there's always more room for growth in terms of us really aligning with essence of who it is that we really are at our core, right? The essence of who it is that we really are at our core. And a lot of the times we spend our lives, in some cases, trying to prove who we are, in some cases, trying to defend who we are. And then in the process of that, we miss out on a lot of life because we've been in the state of the fight or the flight, right? So, enough talking about that. Let's do some healing. Let's address some healing on it. Anybody who wants to align with this healing, I just invite you to open up your heart, open up your mind, to allow the light of God's love to penetrate you in those spaces and places that you maybe have shut yourself off to some degree in an effort to protect yourself, right? And so I'm going to start with the prayer. God, I know you to be a healer. And through the union that we share, through the power of your pure love, the God in me demonstrates you as a healer on the behalf of all of those who are choosing to tap into it at this moment, with the point of neutralizing the root cause of all excessive identification with our lower nature and tendencies to operate from fear-based perspective, from the point of the causal root in every strand of DNA and every cell of the body of each and every one of us who chooses to align with this. And transmuting that into and replacing it with a sense of divine security, enlightened identity, feeling safe and secure based on who it is that we are in God. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you. Thank you for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right, so let's get in with the healing. Okay, so let me first and foremost look at, because this relates to all of us, we're all contributing to it and we're all feeding from it, the collective consciousness of humanity as a whole. All righty. Ooh, big issue within the collective consciousness of humanity there, right? Okay. All right. And yeah, there's a lot there. There is a lot there in terms of we're constantly like getting caught up in this like feedback loop with other people. It's like a collective agreement that we have with everybody that we interact with, that they will um, feed this narrative of a limiting belief system and who it is that we are. And let's replace that with the mind of God and actually feeling safe to be aligned with the mind of God. And actually feeling like it's more fun to be aligned with the mind of God. Okay. All righty. And so let's actually break down collective consciousness from actually the collective consciousness of humanity, the collective consciousness of people within your gender, the collective consciousness of people within your uh, ethnic identity, within your nationality, the collective consciousness of people within the region where you live and with similar upbringing, collective consciousness of people and organizations that you're affiliated with, whatever those organizations might be, whether professional, religious, otherwise. Okay. Let's look at the collective consciousness of your family. Okay. All righty. And so let's actually support you and being able to feed into the collective consciousness, awareness, and alignment with divine insight, divine wisdom, the wisdom of God that surpasses the current level of human understanding. All right. And I also want to look at right now within you attachments to greetings, Dulcie. Aloha to you as well. Okay, and let's look within let's look specifically at fear-based consciousness rooted in the need to make other people wrong as well as the need to make other people right. Okay. A lot of times as young children, we needed to believe that our caregivers were right because we were completely dependent upon them for our survival. So we needed to trust that whatever they were doing was actually going to contribute to our survival. We needed to trust them to help us to survive, right? But that didn't mean that they always had all of the right answers. And sometimes they didn't necessarily have the right answer for us in terms of how they responded to it. Sometimes there were unmet needs that we had. There were needs that we had that ended up being unfulfilled. And then we might have somehow gotten the idea that we didn't need whatever our authentic needs were to be fulfilled. And then might have started telling ourselves a story that we didn't need this or we didn't need that because it felt safer to have the story going that you didn't have the need than it is to say that you had the need and it wasn't fulfilled. Right. All right. So let's look at that deep sense of needing to protect oneself, deep sense of needing to protect oneself to keep from being disappointed and to keep from having needs unfulfilled. To have needs that aren't fulfilled means that to a degree there's some profound vulnerability taking place. And so let's look at the fear of being vulnerable. And let's replace that with the fact, with the awareness that there is a love so deep and so profound for you that allows you to feel safe and secure, even in the midst of ultimate vulnerability. It is completely safe to be completely vulnerable. Doesn't mean we need to be completely vulnerable with everybody. Not everybody is worthy of that. Not everybody will handle that responsibly, but within one's beingness, receiving that it is safe for you, that there is a space where you can be 100% completely vulnerable. Okay. And cultivating that type of relationship with your own inner self, cultivating that type of relationship with God where you can be 100% completely vulnerable and feel completely safe to do so. And at the same time, be wise in your dealings with other people and discerning in who it is that you can be vulnerable with, when, and to what degree. And also to be able to be a safe space for others to be able to do the same. Okay. All right. Want to look at deeply ingrained neural pathways that help to feed the illusion of separation. Put it a little bit differently, that feed the belief system that everybody outside of you is a potential threat, a potential danger, can potentially cause you harm. And then bring into the awareness and open up new neural pathways to know unequivocally that you're safe in the arms of God, that God has you and is protecting you. Okay. Now let's deal with the part of your consciousness that even the thought of that, there's resistance to. Okay. So we want to address past emotional trauma, as well as past sexual trauma. Okay. And birth trauma. On some level, when humans come into the process of being outside of the womb, feel cut off. That umbilical cord gets cut. And then there's, to some degree, where people are feeling cut off from the life source. It is a reality that from the moment we're born, we're closer to death, so-called death, right? That's a truism. However, um, let's realign that sense of identity with your eternal self. To be able to experience it from a state of, rather than from a state of fear, from a state of security. Okay. All righty. And let's even look at any fetal trauma, resolve fetal trauma that may have taken place. Okay. And Let's look at fear of being ostracized or in some way or another crucified because you have allowed your perspective to be elevated in a way that doesn't necessarily feel at home amidst the crowd anymore. In other words, where it feels unsafe to you to be more enlightened, be more in touch, to be more connected with God because of the fears, jealousies, and insecurities that incites within other people who aren't there yet. And the examples of you seeing of how that's ended up unfolding in the lives of those who you have ultimately respected spiritually. Seeing how they were ostracized or even killed. Right. Okay. All right. And let's look at expectation to be hurt or harmed in some kind of way. And let's look at this idea of being spiritually aligned equals boredom. So we want to delete that from the root cause as well as all cumulative effects of that. And transmute that into a sense that it is more fun to be in the perfect will of God. That it's more fun to be spiritually aligned. That it's more fun to operate in alignment with the highest and best version of yourself. Okay. All right. Now, with that, let me look at the belief system that for something to be experienced as fun, that it's got to appeal to your lower nature. All right. There's so much that's put out there that's delivering that message that what's really fun is the stuff that appeals to one's lower nature. Let's reprogram for what's really fun is the stuff that appeals to your higher nature. All right. And then let's look at rather than fear of being or anxiety or any other negative emotion connected to how other people will see you, including what has historically been your support system. We'll transmute that into you actually being a source, or more accurately, a vessel of inspiration in their lives. That they'll feel inspired to grow, inspired to become the best versions of themselves because of what they see in you. All right. And within this context, I'd like to do a lot of things as far as family lineage is concerned, just because there are a lot of issues there. And so we're going to address this within the family lineage in terms of where there have been toxic patterns that have taken place and been fortified within the ancestral line as well as in posterity. And may the ancestors actually be healed through you and all future generations May your healing actually also favorably impact them. All right. God, thank you for the healing that's taken place on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you for the infusion of love and light. Thank you for allowing us to more fully align with who it was that you created us to be according to the divine blueprint that was established at the thought of our creation. Thank you for these and all of the blessings that are unfolding in our lives and for allowing us to be where we are right now, at peace with where we are right now, while simultaneously dedicated to becoming the highest and best versions of ourselves that we could possibly become. These we give great thanks. In Hashem Yeshua HaMashiach Hashem. Amen. All righty. That wraps us up for today, good people. If you are at all interested in learning to do what it is that we do in terms of this methodology referred to as transcending the matrix, feel free to reach out to me at Royce Fletcher Thomas, and either on Instagram or on Facebook, or at Transcending the Matrix on Instagram. We'd love to be able to share this divine wisdom with you for your betterment, for your well-being. You're welcome, Dulcie, and everyone else. If you feel blessed by what you experience here and you want to contribute to what it is that we're doing, you can do that as well. Cash App at $ Royce F. Thomason. Cash App at $ Royce F. Thomason. We welcome that. And other than that, I just wish you all the best as we endeavor to enter into that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. As always, I wish you the absolute best in your life. If you feel like this will be a blessing to somebody, share it with them in a text. If you do want to share on Facebook, I'm always very grateful for the folk who share it on Facebook. Reality is when you share things on Facebook from a post on Facebook, if it's within Facebook, if you don't type anything, probably nobody else is going to see it. So if you do choose to share it on Facebook, whether from the Transcending the Matrix page or from my personal profile, then when you share, please say something about the video, about why you think somebody should watch it. The same if you choose to share it. If you choose to share the YouTube link with somebody and text it to them or email it to them. Speaking of which, again, if you enjoyed this, please check us out on YouTube at Matrix Healing, all one word, Matrix Healing. And if you would like the video, subscribe to the page. And again, if you find somebody that you feel like would be benefited by this, please share it with them. There is something going on the planet where demonic things are being normalized. I actually, on the way driving home from Whole Foods, we started a couple minutes late today, so I'm leading a Transcending the Matrix support session right after this today, and wanted to get out to Whole Foods before all of that was taking place. And on my way back, I noticed there's a billboard. It's a guy on the billboard, young, muscular, reasonably attractive looking guy. He's got this shirt on, and it's a bright and colorful shirt. And I noticed it actually said devil on it. It's like a lot is being normalized for that which is evil. How about we normalize higher levels of consciousness? How about we normalize healing? How about we normalize alignment with God, right? I'm asking you to join me in helping to make that happen. So again, if you share this and other things, I'm not the only one who's doing things to try to support people's growth. I believe that I'm one. But when you come across things like this and others who are doing some positive things or endeavoring to, please watch, like, comment on those things and share them with other people. That helps boost it in the organic algorithm, pushes it out for more people to be able to see and for it to be able to reach more people and have ultimately a greater reach and impact, a larger number of people. All right. With that said, God bless you. And as always, I send you with peace and love.